what's happening in the association on the website. Well, it's just turned 6 o'clock. I'm sure we'll have other stragglers come along. Rain sometimes does that to us Perthians, doesn't it? Makes us doubt our plans. Anyway, it's great to see everyone here. You're obviously the enthusiastic end of the market if you've made it up this way tonight. And I'm very excited because it's a privilege for DeFi to have as our headline act today, Hedera and the cacophony of speakers who are going to actually embellish the ecosystem for us. So we've got Ronan, and we have Rob Allen, and then Daniel Fozzati, and we'll give a little bit of an overview of everybody a little bit later on. So DeFi is, DeFi Perth, as you know. Who knows all of the history of how this all started? Generally speaking, okay. Well, look, Mark Montfort and others, co-founders of this association, has been running for, I think, almost close to 2 years. Am I right, Ronan? It's about right, isn't it? 2 years. And over that time, there have been quite a number of different sponsors who have wanted to associate themselves clearly with all of the activities. I just wanted to point out before we go into the sponsors that Hedera and the HbarSuite, HbarSuite Finance from the Hedera blockchain, they are also our sponsors here tonight, so thank you very much for that. And also, Ronan, you've been doing a great job of buying drinks for us for about the last 12 months, so that's really awesome. So, not centralised, that is the business of which Mark Montfort is a co-founder. Stone and Chalk, well, that's a venue I run, I think, in Sydney. Stables, that's an excellent USDT, USDC, I think USDT has been added to that. Australian crypto wallet for stablecoins only at this stage. Block Earner, Block Demon. Sorry, I can't give you a synopsis of everything. Cloud Tech Group, Seven Web Play, Sense and Fireblocks. They're security, are they not? Is that right? Fireblocks. I think they're blockchain security.
They produce like wallets.
And wallets as well. Okay, they're software, aren't they? They're in the software stack. Crypto Digital Village. So those are our national sponsors. So also Hedera, wonderful. Okay. We've got some updates on what's been happening in the crypto space. So who managed to get along to UWA last month? Yeah, it was a great event. Did you enjoy it?
Last month or 2 months ago?
2 months ago.
Was it 2 months ago? Oh my gosh, seriously? Wow, March, okay. So we had Dirk Bauer, one of the professors of finance there, Lucy's, I think, Stan from Westpac, giving her perspective as a private individual, an economist with Westpac, and then Mike Prendeville from JC. So that was very interesting from an investment perspective, like how do they create portfolios, what are the risks that interest them, and then the other two generals, sorry, I just escaped the name. But yeah, it was fantastic, really interesting conversation about where they think the market is at and where it's going to. We've also had DeFi, various other activities going on all around. So this is the yield finance. I don't know if everyone knows about yield. You can probably speak more competently. So Jonathan and the rest of the team. Apparently that was a real winner of an event sellout. I think that was at Stone and Chalk. And then Melbourne, just what you can see is DeFi, the association is very active. Okay, so I think we've got, I don't know everyone, that's Mark, for those who don't know Mark, doing the 2 fingers there. Brisbane, ETH Global in Sydney, ETH Global in Sydney again. And Dr. Steph Bassett. So all of this information is online on the website. If you want to go and have a look at any of the YouTube videos that show the events, please go and have a look, download it, and subscribe to any of them. You'll fancy, fantastic. This one here, I just put that up. Mt. Gox, I just helped a client 4 or 5 months ago get their submission put in. So that's really good. They're paying out and they hope to finish that payout by October this year. Okay, that does actually depress price, doesn't it?
So they just moved a whole bunch of money yesterday, I believe, from
That's
one
right.
of the
That's right.
Mt. Gox
Yeah,
bonds to another one.
7,000. But the thing is, just as well, in terms of the Japanese legal structure, they had a trust that had, collateral which matched the business, the income. And that one also, look, I think it's just a matter of time, isn't it? GBTC, they had first mover advantage. So what it's basically saying is that BlackRock is now basically taking a lot more inflow versus Grayscale. Where it's going to, who knows? People are saying, well, that's the end of it. But I just think, that's the way of competition. And the final things, I thought I'd put up the Hedera Hbar price, their market cap, and look at the top 5, that's Softcoin Gecko. I mean, it's nothing that you don't know. But that's good, isn't it? 3.7 billion market cap. 67868. Very nice. Solana was interesting, number 5.
What's the total market value? What's the total token value on Hbar?
The total token value. Well, I mean, price is 0.15.
Yeah. 3.7 market cap now. What's the total? What's the total?
Oh, the circulating supply.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know, but that's a function of the market cap
Right.
and the price. So you have to kind of back engineer that.
Yep.
And look, I think 50 billion is their total supply.
Okay.
In terms of their tokenomics, that's Hbar. And then the final one. That's it. Awesome. Now we get into Ronan. I've got some nice things to say about you. Well, you're a long-standing member of the Oz DeFi group, so that's awesome. You've been here since 2022. Very active in building out this community. Very active. And also being, very loyal drinks buyer for us. But you're also, in terms of your role, the partnership manager at HbarSuite. So that's HbarSuite Finance. And they're a key DeFi application on the Hedera blockchain. So tonight, you're going to take us through the Hedera ecosystem, and we will introduce. Should we make a comment about Rob Allen a little bit later?
I'll introduce it.
You'll introduce him. And what about Daniel as well?
We can do it.
We can do it later. Okay, excellent. Well, round of applause for Ronan.
Hi guys, thank you all for coming today. I'm just going to give a little bit of a brief introduction into Hedera. There's many people who are aware of Hedera and have been experienced on chain with anything. So a lot of new people to Hedera. There's a lot to know about Hedera, but there's so much information out there about Hedera, and it's exciting to see what's it's evolved from. So in 2016, they started the release of it. It was introduced to investors. It was created by Dr. Hbar and co-founded by Harman. So that partnership, they grew up being friends. They met in the Navy and have worked together on different partnerships. And Dr. Lehman has done many talks throughout Harvard and lectures. So he's a genius when it comes to technology, and he was the inventor and creator of Hashgraph technology, which is slightly different to a blockchain. So with a blockchain, you have on the left-hand side, you have block leaders. So the Hashgraph is considered the next generation of blockchain. So it's different to a blockchain. It's considered a DAG, and the use of Hashgraph, it's proof of stake network. So we have the Governing Council members. So this is the structure of Hedera, pretty much map of the way that it's structured. You've got the mainnet consensus service, which is one of the strongest tools that Hedera has. You have, it's broken up into the consensus service, the token service, and the smart contract service. You also have the file service as well. HbarSuite comes in later, where we actually reduce part of the load of Hedera from, so with Hedera, they only have, I think it's 3 minutes worth of storage, and then the rest is obtained by mirror nodes. So mirror nodes work in with Hedera and help to maintain it. So you have the governing council members who are here, and it's bolstered by many large entities. That'll be on the next slide. I'll go through some of the connections there with the Hedera Governing Council. We're going to have Ronan joining us later, all going well. Rob is from HbarSuite. He's been an advocate of Hedera since the get-go, and he's very much involved within the community. He's one of the representatives of Australian Payments Plus, which is formerly known as EFTPOS. So they'll be looking to integrate into Hedera and payment services and the evolution of it. So so there's a lot of different applications that are being built on Hedera. It's growing every day. There's more developers finding out about Hedera and building on it. So it's exciting to see where it has been and where it's going to as well. So if you want to go to the next slide. So this is the Hedera Governing Council. You might recognize many of them. You've got Boeing, Aberdeen, who's a large asset management company, the largest in the UK. You've got IBM, Hitachi, obviously Australian Payments Plus, following with EFTPOS. You've got Roarty, Nomura, one of the largest banks in Japan, Mondelez, Shinhan Bank, Dell. So there's massive entities there. You've got Avery Dennison, who have a massive use case called Amat.io, which is using Hedera's consensus service to within they're basically in the tracking and tracing of materials and products, and it's all integrated into Hedera. So it's really interesting to see their development. It's a really interesting use case. Like if you want one of their products, their tagging mechanism, you can basically put it in a basket, just one by one, and it just automatically picks up. You don't need to scan anything; it just automatically picks up on the sensors. So that's a lot of you've got Swirl's Lab here. Swirl's Lab, they do a lot of the development for Hedera. So a lot of the Hedera developers are working under Swirl's Lab. So they have a lot of the enterprises integrating using Swirls who are building into the Hedera network. So so how are we doing on time?
I think we're doing pretty well. It's 6:14.
So these are some of the Governing Council is going to be made up of 39 members, and the different structure is what it's based around. So with the Governing Council, you're going to have 39 members on the council. We're currently up to, I think it's 32. So they have to be spread across geographic locations around the globe. There's different criteria that they need to be under in order to be accepted or considered on the Governing Council member. So Hedera tries to target some of the well-known and most respected entities, and they see this as the best way of not being corrupted, because a lot of the large entities, you've got lots of Google who,
CIA based.
yeah,
And four of them, I actually know about CIA, but CIA based inside your council. One School of Economics. It's a CIA limited hangout. So yeah, I'll be worried about that. That's your only university.
well, you've got the University College of London.
Well, that's a couple. London School of Economics. That's what I'm saying. That's a limited CIA. That's a limited CIA hangout. That's where all the kind of people go there to kind of learn tradecraft in economics to become kind of like economic hitmen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's a number of different educational based, so yeah, they try to. What else do we have to go back there?
Oh, you want to go back?
Yep. London School of Economics. That's kind of like, if you read kind of Confessions of an Economic Hitman, he's mentioned it once or twice in there, but it's you do further research, and London School of Economics is a CIA limited hangout. Google, same again, same with Dell, and same with IBM. So, you've got to kind of like make sure you don't get those fucking kind of entities inside the company being otherwise in the war for the pub.
I think
Yeah,
that's
well,
where
they
they
have to
are.
come to
They are.
consensus in
They're in
order
the council,
to,
mate.
for anything to be brought, so,
Just mentioned, sorry.
yeah,
I read too many books.
yeah, so, it's good to have a perspective on it.
Just kind of, it's good to kind of keep a fucking eye on these people because those are the people who fuck things over. So, for everybody.
Yeah, so there is a number of different educations, IT matters, and then we also have the School of Economics as well, so,
I know about the survey top one, so
yeah.
IBM, School of Economics, Dell, who they're pretty well for it. It's basically they're corrupted by the survey. And they've actually got people kind of like, from their schools inside kind of that organisation, those organisations, the Harvards, the Princetons, the Yales, the Ivy League schools that kind of push out fucking kind of like spies.
But that's the thing, it's important to have alternating council members as well, for reasons like that. You don't want to get people who are connecting too much, yeah, so they
Sorry,
have,
just kind of put a better mention because sorry.
yeah, so each council member has a limited time, so there's 3 years on the council committee,
Okay.
and then it has to be rotated.
That's good.
It's up to the decision of the council members whether to allow a council member to stay on it. If they're not pulling their weight, then they'll be voted off it. So it's important for Hedera to make sure that there's council members attending all the council meetings, and all the meetings are published as well. So you have a minutes record, which are all published and available.
Good to read.
So the next one, like the interviews as well.
Okay. Yeah, so Rob Allen he's been around in Hedera since the early days. He's been very involved within the community. He will attend a lot of the council meetings in person, so he's a wealth of knowledge. He also has regular meetups with community presentations, so every week he's working alongside Ronan Hargreaves, who has a regular weekly update on what's going on in the ecosystem of Hedera. So it's very, very interesting to watch. Sometimes it'll go on for an hour because there's so much happening in the ecosystem. Sometimes it's an hour and a half, and sometimes it might be a bit less. But Hedera in itself, the transactions, it's the most transactions across any of the chains.
What's your TPS up to now?
It's normally averaging in around 1,500 TPS. So it's far more than any of the other chains. I think the closest one after that is Amat. But yeah, there's what I would call suppression by certain media outlets. Yeah, they tend to use blockchain as the terminology to discredit or not include Hedera in the transactions, but yeah, as a DAG network, it's yeah, very capable and scalable use. So you can have up to 10,000 transactions per second on Hedera. So and that's before sharding. 620. Yeah. So yeah, if is there any questions so far on Hedera or what you would like to know?
Just about like the programming language. How does that work? What programming language do you guys use on Hedera?
It depends on what you're doing. So there's a range of different languages: TypeScript, Python.
I mean, sorry, like for example, Solidity for Ethereum to program like their smart contracts.
Yeah, so it's EVM compatible. So
okay.
you can actually migrate your smart contracts across to Hedera, and you can use the SDKs that are available. So there's so many different SDKs to make it easier for developers to come across. HbarSuite in itself, they're a smart contractless infrastructure called smart nodes, which I'll go into a bit later. But they're taking the limitation of Solidity out of the equation, so you'll no longer have to use Solidity on Hedera for any type of smart contract uses.
Thanks.
Yeah, so there's so much going on. So one of the most prolific wallets is probably Hashgraph wallet. There's so many different wallets on Hedera. You've got Wave wallet, you've got Arbela, you've got Walla wallet. There's so many. You've got Mingo, an Irish-based company who use their wallet for the likes of ticketing for flight events. So yeah, with Hashgraph, there's so many uses. They integrate DEX infrastructure, so you can swap from exchanges, and that's one of the things that HbarSuite has as well, is a zero slippage DEX. So we want to see the likes of different wallets and platforms integrating many of the services that are available. So we want to make it easier for developers to build on Hedera. So HbarSuite are offering more services available to enterprises and customers on Hedera.
Can you actually take the tokens offline, put onto a cold wallet, Trezor, Ellipsol, things like that?
Yeah, so they recently integrated the Ledger integration for fungible tokens. It's not quite compatible for NFTs just yet. But Decent Wallet is also another wallet that you can use to store your wallet offsite. There's also Citadel Wallet, that's in development, and that's specifically for Hedera tokens. So you'll be able to store your NFTs and any other assets on that as well.
What kind of apps are you getting most kind of prolific?
So applications on the network, you've got many different applications. You've got NFT platforms, marketplaces, you've got Centex. They've been incredible with a lot of the tools, and the tools that they have is pretty phenomenal. You can buy massive amounts. I think they've been able to do transactions of, I think it was 460 NFTs within one purchase. So that itself shows the capability of Hedera, being able to exchange a ton of transactions within Hedera and do it within the click of a button. It's pretty incredible. So there's so much potential with the uses on Hedera. HbarSuite itself is showcasing what you can actually build on Hedera without the use of smart contracts. And yeah, so there's many other dexes who have migrated and used smart contracts. So some of them are using the likes of Uniswap smart contracts and amending it and adjusting it to fit into Hedera and adding their own infrastructures and tools to enhance it. So you've got Saucer Swap, you've got Swap, you've got apps that blocking mechanisms for your token locks, like the Graph. So yeah, there's so much potential, and yeah, what other wallets? We've got Blade Wallet. There's a lot of functionality with that. We've recently also added since January MetaMask connection as well, so you'll be able to tap into basically Hedera tokens using Hedera wallets connecting to MetaMask. So it's opening up the doors and the corridor to interoperability. Like for example, HbarSuite has a cross-chain exchange where you'll be able to actually use the exchange to swap between wallet-to-wallet transactions. So if you have an Ethereum wallet and you wanted to swap it to Hedera, you could literally just enter the account that you're sending it to and send the tokens to the HbarSuite allocated account ID and watch the magic happen. So it's a really phenomenal tool which opens up the door to interoperability between chains. So it's not limited to Hedera, so you can swap between other chains as well. So yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Do you use chaining? Do you use chaining?
No.
Or is it a bridge?
We use a third party to make magic happen, but it hasn't been disclosed. I think it's pretty close.
Yeah, should we see if we see?
Yep. But yeah, you've got the likes of recent. You've got real world assets being tokenized on Hedera. You've got different funds that are being added. You've got Aberdeen who are tokenizing funds on Hedera. You've got BlackRock fund, which has also been integrated and is being tokenized on Hedera through a third party, RGX. So RGX is one of the only accredited to do what they're doing with the real world assets.
Yeah,
Hey Daniel, you can hear us okay?
Yeah. A
How are
little
you?
muffled, but I think.
So Daniel is from the Blockworks. So Daniel is based out of London, if I'm not mistaken. He's got a connection, and some of his partners have worked with the DLT Science Foundation, who we've kindly connected with, and they've kindly connected us with Daniel and his team. So it's a pleasure to have Daniel on us today. Yeah, we're hoping to also have Rob Allen joining us shortly. No, you don't need all word.
Is there a camera? Should I be seeing you guys? You can kick off the end. Let's just end that.
I can turn my camera on here. can you see me?
Yeah, perfect.
We might make a start. If you want to introduce yourself and discuss what you're doing at the building blocks, and yeah, it's interesting to. Well, I just have Rob joining us now. We might just start off with Rob. Rob, hello, Rob.
Hey, how's it going, Ronan? Hey, Dan.
We've just been through an introduction for yourself, so we've had a bit of an introduction into Hedera, and yeah, we'd like to maybe ask you to explain what your role has been within Hedera and the different entities that you've been involved with throughout your time in Hedera, and the other foundations as well that you had your stints with. And yeah, and then you can move into Australian Payment Plus if you like.
Absolutely. Would you like me to show some slides or just talk to the?
Yeah, if you'd like to show some slides, it's up to you.
Let me start first. Can you hear me okay? I don't need to go into my headphones.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Audio is perfect. Okay. So my name's Rob Allen. I'm currently the head of Web3 and Future Payments Strategy at Australian Payments Plus. My role here is to define the strategy for the whole of the Australian payments industry with regard to distributed ledger technology and all things Web3, which is a pretty sweet place for me to be, given my background in building payment systems. Maybe just 10, 20 seconds on that. I've been around the blocks. My initial roles were in building battlefield computer systems for the British Army back in the day, and then I segued into banking, which was a pretty easy move from military into banking, and found my way into payments. And I've been kind of working with the payments industry ever since, both in the UK and then in Europe. And I came to Australia about 8 years ago to head up the PwC blockchain practice, where I first discovered Hedera. And we were looking at micropayments use cases, ways to create infrastructure that allowed value to flow in much the same way as any other utility. My vision is of a future where micropayments are kind of foundational infrastructure of smart cities and decentralized and distributed communities that know no borders. So, we've got a way to go yet. But through the work that I was doing, I discovered Hedera in 2017. Kind of really the vision resonated with me. My first forays into Hedera were very early. We worked with PwC. We worked with the Monetary Authority of Singapore with some early proofs of concept that to test the technology and kick the tires. This was even before open access and the network became public. And then I then became part of the community and a bit of a fanboy, and lurked in the Telegram channels, and all the while continuing my day job. And having left PwC, I then did a few other things, but ended up at EFTPOS, which is the Australian debit card payment infrastructure, as entrepreneur in residence. And that gave me the ability not only to work in my primary role, which is building digital identity in the Connect ID business, which is has now become Australia's identity platform for financial services, but also to test out Hedera some more. And in doing that, I was able to truly run some proofs of concept that really pushed the boundaries of what Hedera was back in 2020, and some micropayments proofs of concept which we did with some partners, and was so successful that EFTPOS was invited to join the Governing Council for Hedera, and I'll talk a little bit more about the Governing Council in a second. EFTPOS more recently has been merged into what is now called Australian Payments Plus. And AP Plus is actually the entire Australian payments infrastructure, so our real-time payment system called MPP, our bill payments infrastructure called BPay, and EFTPOS have combined with other digital businesses like Connect ID, and we've got QR services, and we've got the Beam wallet. So we've got lots of payments related infrastructure now that is all under the roof. And we retain this Hedera Governing Council position which gives us the inside track. And it's a great honour to be amongst all of these these major global brand names, all kind of experimenting, discovering, and delivering on the Hedera network themselves. So let me just show. I'll pause. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them as we go. Otherwise, I'll just show my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. And your experience on the Governing Council, what is it like going to meetings, and can you give us a little bit of an insight into?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what everyone wants to know. Right? Let me just share. I've kind of jumped ahead of myself. Can you see my screen? Yeah, I can see the screen. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's
So I mean, something I prepared earlier, but I've kind of already talked to this. Oh, the other thing about Australian Payments Plus that a few people know is that it's actually owned by the banks and the retailers. So for AP Plus is the payments business for Australia, but it's actually owned by the four major banks, plus Cascal, which is the payments integrator and aggregator, Woolworths and Coles, our two major retailers. And then we have over 150 members as well of the various schemes that AP Plus comprises. So it's pretty significant business in Australia.
Will AP Plus be leveraging Hedera for their infrastructure?
Well, this is my role, right? This is my job to actually define what that future is. And I may come back to that in a second. So, we joined the Governing Council, which is, sorry, Ronan, I'll definitely come back in a second because that's clearly what people want to know. But the Governing Council at the moment is 32, these 32 on the screen. We've got 39 seats by design, and each of these Governing Council members only gets 2 3-year terms. In fact, 1 3-year term, and if they don't actually start delivering something or contributing, or for whatever reason roll off, then it's only one, but if they do, then it's 2. So once we're full, we've then got a pipeline of other members in the sidelines waiting to come on. But these are major brands, major businesses. Our most recent ones are Hitachi and Mondelez. Mondelez, massive, brand gallery of Oreos and Ritz and Toblerone and pretty much every packaged good you can think of. They're building supply chain platforms. They're building rewards and payments and refund applications on the highly scalable Hedera network. Hitachi's looking at IoT devices, looking at sustainability. So these use cases that the Governing Council members are drawn to Hedera for are wide and varied. We have a committee structure. I'm going to jump around now, so forgive me for kind of leaping around here. The slides. The Governing Council is the day-to-day work, I guess, the heavy lifting is done through the committees. And the council meets every month, but the committees also meet every month, and we've got this kind of tech committee, the technical steering committee. We've got a treasury committee which kind of oversees the distribution of the tokens from treasury, and it recommends the council how those tokens should be distributed. It looks into things like staking and how the staking rewards work. Whereas the tech committee look at the roadmap and the engineering, oversees the HIP, the Hedera Improvement Proposal Process. The third one, corporate utilisation, is my committee. I chair CorpCom, and we look at real-world use cases. We support governing council members who come to share ideas or to co-create the most appropriate architectures for particular use cases that they're looking at. Our membership committee is the one that manages the pipeline of members who are coming to the council, and when it's full, like I said earlier, we'll manage the rolling off and retention of council members too. Then we've got a legal and regulatory committee. We're very, very regulatory aware, risk averse if anything, and companies like this, with some of whom are dipping their first toes into the Web3 space, it gives them great comfort that we've got some of the world's biggest companies doing the same thing at the same time, or maybe even in front of them, so that they get that comfort. We've got 4 major banks, 5 banks actually. We've got 2 of the world's biggest legal firms, and DLA Piper and Dentons. We've got IBM and Boeing and Google. These are companies that do bring comfort to the newcomers. That from a regulatory perspective, they're in very good company. And then finally, the marketing committee kind of overlooks the enterprise-focused marketing, not necessarily the retail marketing. It's always a bone of contention that we don't do enough kind of degen marketing, but it's not really the Hedera way to shell out coin. We allow the community to do that, but from a government council perspective, and because of things like the regulatory posture, as a council we can't be seen to be doing the shilling, but we are definitely aware that it's being done in the community, and we're kind of trying to pull together. Let me just jump forward. I think you've probably gone over this, Ronan. Have you the kind of technical section making
I've gone through the structure of Hedera. You could probably touch on the efficiency. I haven't quite touched on that. If you would like to do that.
So, from the perspective of Hedera not being a blockchain, it's a DLT. The Hashgraph is a very different protocol. It's based on actually 2 main protocols: virtual voting and gossip about gossip. And these together form, along with the direct acyclical graph data structure, these form a very different way to achieve decentralized trust, which is what all DLTs seek to achieve. And it does it in such a way which is lightning fast. I mean, our time to consensus is, for the moment, on mainnet around 3 seconds, and that's legal finality. There's no, as there is with blockchain, there's always a chance that chain gets rolled back or forked. With Hedera, that's not possible at all. We have ABFT, asynchronous Byzantine fork tolerance, which is the kind of gold standard, and that's achieved through both this hash graph and this ability to achieve consensus in a lightning quick way. So that is a basis for speed. Allows us 2 things. Firstly, the efficiency allows us to be super sustainable. We're actually very, very low in energy consumption. We're still a proof-of-stake network, but unlike other proof-of-stake network, we consume tiny amounts of energy. In fact, we offset through purchase of carbon credits the small amount of energy that the network consumes. And we're also, we're very, very efficient in terms of the costs. Our cost structure is paid for in our crypto, in Hbar, but it's pegged to fiat. So from an enterprise perspective, when one is forecasting one's growth, it's not only low costs, but very, very predictable costs. And our APIs. We've got the consensus service, the token service on the right, and the smart contract service. There's a kind of rate card for all of the network fees for the consumption of these services. And in the consensus service example, that's 1/100th of a US cent for a transaction fee to achieve a transaction on the mainnet with this legal finality within seconds. Token service on average about 1/10 of a second. Our smart contract service is really interesting actually because it's an EVM, but it's been kind of configured. I know this is not not your way and the HbarSuite way, but it's worth kind of mentioning. There is this EVM where, based on the Besu EVM, we've kind of configured it and made it super fast according to the underlying Hedera layer, but nowhere near as fast or actually as secure as the consensus service and the token service. So, those are my preferences to use as well. And as you can see on the top, with such a wide range of use case types that can be used. If I just, I think just to answer your question, what AP+ is going to be looking to do, we've got, I came in November, so I was away for 2 years. Once EFTPOS was being merged into AP+, there's a full kind of operating model reset, obviously. I took the opportunity to go to the Hbar Foundation, having been part of the working group that wrote the RFP that the foundation responded to when I was on the Governing Council previously. I thought it would be I would be able to add value in trying to build that foundation with the directors and Shane Higdon, who was appointed to be the CEO. And I did that for just over a year, and then I went, and we have another foundation based out of Switzerland called the Hashgraph Association, which is a lot more enterprise focused. So then I joined them to set up the enterprise program, which is a granted program for businesses and corporates to build their proofs of concept and pilots. So I did that, and then in November I came back once the dust had settled and we were ready to start looking forward to kind of more strategically to drive this future of payments strategy. And that has 3 core pillars. Firstly, it is strategic. We think that there is most likely a scheme that is very different from the current schemes. Scheme is infrastructure and rules and a membership group, a bit like Visa, but also the new payments platform MPP is a scheme, Connect ID is a scheme, EFTPOS is a scheme. So it's kind of a rule book and a membership framework and companies that can collaborate within that framework. So we think that there's a Web3 payment scheme in our future, but we don't quite know what it is yet. So while we're kind of creating that framework, we're also looking at infrastructure optimization. I mentioned micropayments earlier, but also things like network resiliency or interoperability, tokenization. The use of tokenization in payments is quite key as well. And then we're also, AP+ also very focused on consumer experiences. We've got the Beam wallet, we've got some very high profile retail members. We have the captive audience of 25, 26 million Australians. So there's a lot that we do in that space as well to make the payment experience easier, to wrap in new technologies like QR, or to incorporate sustainability as an example, or rewards, or other features within the payment experience. So all of those things are given to distributed ledger technology, tokenized rewards, or tokenized sustainability credits, could all be kind of bundled into that. So across those 3 pillars, we're facing into quite an interesting next few months and years. But what we've done in the last few years, we haven't been totally quiet about this. We've been working on micropayments, like I said originally. I've worked very closely with the Reserve Bank on doing micropayments white paper. We've been looking at rewards and digital identity and a variety of other ways of leveraging the Hedera stack to incorporate into this kind of these future pillars. And here's a long list of other things that we might be looking at. You know, there's stablecoin exchanges, there's incorporating financial services infrastructure, looking at visionary things like replacing Australian coinage or rewards infrastructure. So there's a lot going on there. I'm not saying any of these are underway yet, but it's from a visioning perspective. There's a lot going on. Not stop there. For questions?
Thank you. We'll let Daniel do his presentation, and then if it's all right, we'll ask you guys some questions at the end once members here have any questions to ask you guys.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be a tough act to follow. Thanks for that, Ron. Thanks everyone. I can't see anyone, so I'll just talk to the void. So I won't be able to read any feedback. So thanks for the invitation to this. My name is Daniel Fozzati. I'm founding partner at Building Blocks. We are a Web3 and AI venture builder, operating specifically at the intersection of both of those emerging technologies. We, under this hat, we have been working very closely with Hedera, more specifically Swirls Labs, over the past year and a half, actually, at this point, on a piece of infrastructure to solve one of the core problems that we have, which is losing our keys. I'm sure there are those in the audience, or maybe some of us on the call, where we've all had that oh moment, where we're like, where are my keys? And we worry about, how are we going to access our crypto? And as more and more digital assets are held, and these assets maintain their value and regulation becomes more stable, this is a problem that's only gonna get worse. So we've been working with Swirls Labs. We stood up a team about 2 years ago to look into this space. We were working with a couple of banks. And so we had this thought of, hang on, banks are really good at keeping things securely. Plus or minus. If you forget some of the recent banking crises. But more importantly, banks have good brands. They've got brands that people trust. Now, of course, there's a school of thought where it's like, no, I want to self-custody everything. And you can't trust those brands. And so we came to the table thinking, well, what if we could do the best of both worlds? And so we sat down with Lehman at Swirls, and Lehman had this idea for something called decentralized recovery. And at the time, it was just it was an RFC, so it was a sort of a conceptual framework of how it might work. And over the past year and a half, we've been working on a protocol that we call DeRec, so decentralized recovery. And now this protocol has now formed into the DeRec Alliance. All of you in the audience, you can take a look at DeRecAlliance.org. We just announced the joining of a few more members. I think Ripple and Algorand. Those are the ones that are officially on there. So obviously, you're only as good, like your standard for this approach. You're only as good as the adoption that you have. And so we've been really keen from the outset to be as agnostic as possible. So actually, you'll notice that Hedera is not on there, and that's very much on purpose. That's because we didn't want this to come out of the gate and everyone say, oh, this is a Hedera product. No, this is just a standard for all DLTs out there to adopt and to adopt it based on merit, rather than, you know, oh, this is a political thing. And so the reason why I'm talking to you guys today is because after about a year and a half or so of really, I have to say, it was an amazing time working with Squirrels, and then publicly announcing it in January. We announced it at in St. Moritz in collaboration with Algorand, and we decided to now make a good song and dance to the public about, well, we've got this standard of how to recover keys, but now we've got to actually implement the service. And so what we've gone on to do past the protocol is now we've got the beginnings of a service that we are developing in partnership with banks. And so the banks are will function as sort of helpers that hold the keys, or parts of keys, I should say. And no one bank or institution have enough power to reassemble the key on your behalf. You will always be in the driving seat, and you always hold one part of the key that's crucial for the key reassembly. So it's this best of both worlds approach that we've been going after. We want to sort of balance that convenience whilst also the trust and ease of use and security. And so the service that we are been working on is called Hbar. And we've been working with wallets. So there's quite a few wallets, particularly in the Hedera space, but also outside of Hedera. Blade, I believe, if you guys are familiar with the Blade wallet, we've been working with them to implement this as part of their offering. I'll pause there if there's any questions.
Okay. You guys should speak through the mic so I can hear it.
Yeah, easy. Please let me know if you don't hear this properly. But question for Daniel. Am I understanding it correctly? You have your private key, and then as a backup, multiple banks have parts of your private key?
Correct.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I was just wondering, are those banks across different jurisdictions, or how does that work?
Oh, I love the question already. I can see the angle you're taking. Yes, they are across multiple jurisdictions, but for the MVP, we're keeping it a bit local, just to test the water, and it's going to be in the UK. Just from a jurisdiction perspective, in terms of definition of custody, which I think is probably where you're going. Yeah, we're going for the UK initially, and then we're working on some US banks.
Man, super interesting problem you're solving. It's cool that you guys are taking a multiple jurisdiction approach, because I think that'll be a lot of people's concerns with it. But yeah, that you are, I think, is pretty interesting.
It's a challenge. Like it's pluses and minuses, right? Like on the one hand, it would be you don't want to be overly leveraged on one jurisdiction. On the other, if you get into some jurisdictions that are, how can I say this, a little bit more woolly about what they think custody or not custody is a digital asset, then you get into a situation where you could be compelled to give that shard of a private key to the authorities. And I think we get into a slippery slope kind of scenario there. So we're looking for quite clear-cut jurisdictions where it's like very clear that even though you have this shard of a key, that does not mean that you are custodying assets.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
I believe Bank Social are doing something similar with the credit unions.
They are, so they're doing it for their existing customers. So we're sort of flipping the business model on its head. So in order to use that recovery mechanism, Bank Social are doing that with for users of Bank Social. We are flipping the script and saying, you don't need to be a customer of any of these banks. These banks are just the helpers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does anyone else have any questions? If you just pass the mic around here.
Just the mic. Oh, did you want to ask?
Yeah.
We've got a few
How many
questions.
pixels you got there, Ronan? We can't see, so you might have like thousands of people.
I know,
you
I'm
know.
worried this is the whole.
Yeah, it's about 100 of us.
Couple of thousand.
Couple of thousand, yeah, good.
So I just had a question about the banks. What motivation do they have to hold your keys? What are they gain out of it?
Yeah, so the service that we're providing will compensate them because the wallet providers are going to offer this as sort of like a convenience service. So you'll pay just like you do now. You'll pay a convenience fee to the wallet provider, and then the wallet will pay a clip onwards to the bank for being banked.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Sophie, you have a question?
Yeah, just very briefly. So, I mean, what would that actually look like in practice? Say you've lost your private keys and your shard's with the bank that you don't actually bank with. Like, I mean, unless every single bank is willing to participate, it could well be that you don't have a relationship with that particular bank. I mean, is that a problem, would you say?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. It's going in and out.
Can you hear this one?
Let's give that a shot.
Okay, all right, I'll go again. What I was asking is, like, what would be the practical, like, process? I'm just trying to imagine, like, what would happen if I was a client of Bank A, say, but they're not offering this particular service. I mean, I know we're at the concept stage, but can you just briefly unpack what that would look like, I mean, using the sharding recovery system for loss of, yeah, the cryptocurrency?
Would you mind repeating the question, Ronan?
So you're wondering about the sharding of the keys.
I think the question was what's the user experience of recovery of keys if in the event one was lost? Is that the question?
Yeah, pretty much.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, so the protocol, the protocol is designed as such that you initiate a recovery mechanism. So let's say you realize that you've lost your keys. Through the wallet, you say, I've lost my keys, click a button. And then because in the background, the wallet has been communicating with all the helpers at regular intervals to make sure that they are keeping the keys. And it's been doing this every 5 minutes at infinitum. All the helpers that have held your key shards so far say, yes, I've still got the key, yes, I've still got the key. So that's 5 helpers, you need a minimum of 5. The 5 helpers wake up and say, yes, I can offer my piece of key. The protocol then defines in which order those keys come in. And then the reassembly of the key happens all locally.
How would I ask a question?
Wow.
We've got a question on the follow-up. I have a question for Rob. Relative to this, the DeRec, have Australian Payments Plus been in talks, and are they looking at the recovery side of things as well, or what way would they manage the loss of keys for integration?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like most kind of enterprises, we're on a journey towards Web3. I think we're not envisaging in the near future needing retail customers to manage their own keys. That doesn't mean that we can't use DeRec for recovery at the back end. And some of the operational efficiencies that we're seeking to use Hedera for, this isn't applicable to anyway. But I'm a massive fan of what the DeRec Alliance is bringing to market. I love the fact that it's open source. I love the fact that it's an open alliance and that it's not specific to any one chain or ledger. So as part of our infrastructural stack, I have no doubt it'll be incorporated at some point.
Any other questions?
Yes, I've got one for you, Rob. Sophie here again. So what was the, I guess, the thinking for selection of Hedera? I mean, it sounds like that's where the Australian payment system is interested. You know, that's where, you know, you're representing them to understand how to use, I guess, the tech stack from Hedera. So what was the kind of decision-making process that led them to choosing Hedera?
Yeah, great question. So when we joined in 2020, 21, or when EFTPOS joined rather than when HbarSuite joined, like many of the Governing Council members back 3-4 years ago, it was the beginning of the journey. It was very much part of getting an inside track. We kind of understood that we needed to do something in the space but didn't know what it was. Our focus on, I mean, we don't have any burning platforms in Australia. You know, there's no need to move off of MPP or move off of EFTPOS or do things in a different way. But there's a very definite direction of travel, which is towards more decentralization. So it became very obvious quite early that, you know, there was a risk, there was a threat, which could potentially be existential if we didn't have an informed position in the Web3 space. And for both of those reasons, because there was no burning platform, we had to look to a space where we might play, and that was why micropayments became, you know, part of the torchbearer really for the new area that we needed to look at. And then when micropayments were, because no one else is tackling micropayments in this way, and then looking to a distributed ledger technology that could scale in the way to meet that particular set of use cases, there was, you know, really only one choice. Micropayments have been around for decades, but very centralized, and in the Web3 space, micropayments can be done, but, you know, in the trade-off that is the trilemma to get to scale, which you don't have with Hedera. You don't have that trade-off. So that's why we ran the proof of concept on Hedera. Like I said, I'd been, you know, a Hedera fanboy for years before that, so it became quite an easy sell to me personally to use that technology. But internally, we did quite a lot of analysis of other types of chain. And then it just became, you know, we joined the Governing Council, we got, you know, more immersion to this technology, we've got more understanding of the use case that can be applied to. But we have banks that are issuing stable coins on other chains. We have, you know, we understand that the world is going to be multi-chain. So, you know, there isn't a view that there is one chain to rule them all. I mean, the DeRec Alliance is multi-chain, and, you know, the Algorand and Ripple are excellent examples of other enterprise scale type chains. So, you know, I think we're learning a lot of lessons from Hedera. We will absolutely be implementing Hedera solutions, and because we are a scheme-based organisation with members that may be implementing on other chains, we need to understand what it means to incorporate, integrate, and interoperate with other technologies as well, both distributed ledger technologies and more traditional ledger technologies. But I remain a Hedera fanboy through all of it.
I've got one more. Does anyone else have a question?
No, I don't know.
Sophie had one
I
question.
have another question. So originally, 11 industries, I mean, is that preset? I mean, are there not other industries outside of those that were named that have an interest? I don't know, was education there? Maybe it was, I'm not sure. Maybe one university? It seems like there's like...
You're referring to the
in
Governing
terms of council, yeah, in terms of governance.
Yeah, I think there's three or...
Sorry, what was the
I
question?
guess the question is, like, it's just an interesting thought, like, there's like, what is the weighting to the industries that see themselves coming to participate at the council level, or are you generally open? Is it a competitive election process depending upon potential members?
it's relating to the Governing Council
Yeah, Governing
members.
Council.
So if I share my screen, you can see it again. One of the things about the Governing Council, which I think is actually part of the genius, I mean, the real innovation for Hedera, or one of the real innovations I would say, is how we view decentralization, right? So most chains think of decentralization as open source, or the ability to build in a kind of trustless environment. And trustlessness is a feature of distributed ledgers. And the way that Hedera views it, all of those things are true, but also you trust a network that is hosted across nodes that are trustworthy. And we have a kind of 100-year vision, and there's a very good video by Lehman Bear, one of our founders, called The Path to Decentralization. And when you've got a proof of stake network, you can't distribute all the tokens straight away at almost zero cost, because the risk is that too many tokens will be accumulated by bad actors, and then your network fails, right? So you need to have a controlled approach to both distributing those tokens, but also to growth. And the approach that Hedera has taken is that the first phase will be a network of these governing council members that, whether you like them or not, whether you like the individual businesses or not, you've got a very much decentralized network across industry sector, across geography. They only have this 3-year time kind of period with only one potential extension. And together you would not expect the likes of Google and Standard Bank and Boeing and Mondelez to collude against the network. And therefore you would expect that network to be trustworthy while it's gaining momentum and growing, and the tokens are being distributed in a controlled way. So we think it's kind of the grown-up approach to building network. It's akin to the Web3 version of how the internet was birthed and grew in the first place. And so, I mean, the sectors represented by the governing councils have to be as wide and varied as possible. We can't have a council full of Silicon Valley tech giants, or a council full of banks, or a council full of APAC representation or US representation, because that cuts across this principle of decentralization and trust. But we've only got 7 seats left. We've currently got, and you can see on the screen, probably the most varied set of Fortune 20 and equivalent businesses that you could possibly imagine. We're probably missing, we'd be missing an airline, maybe an auto manufacturer, probably another Web3 business. We've got Chainlink and BitGo there, maybe another one. Something in the gaming space, we've got Ubisoft, but maybe another retail or gaming company. You may not know all of these names, but they're look them up, they're actually pretty significant businesses. So, we think we've probably got the mix about right. We're missing an NGO or two. I think we've got this kind of matrix in the membership committee of the kinds of business or equivalent organisations that we want to attract and to bring onto the governing council. Not only because they bring a whole range of new use cases that are enriching both to the network and to the rest of the council, because we collaborate and we kind of share notes and we learn from each other, but also we have this, if these NGOs will actually bring greater outreach into new sectors as well, and provide additional resilience to the network. So, I think we're on a pretty good track. We should actually fill the council in this next year. I think we've got an objective in 2024 to fill it. I think it's probably going to take a little bit longer than that, but once we've got 39, then we've got another problem, which is, you know, who do we roll off, who do we bring on, and what's the transition between the governing council members. But that's going to be a really good process to have. And then the next, just to round out, the next stage for this decentralization is what we refer to as community nodes. So community nodes will be, you know, hundreds of participating nodes in the network that contribute to consensus, and will over time, you know, move towards a time when actually it will be fully decentralized and anyone can run a node. But when you've got a 100-year vision, you can kind of take your time to get there in a controlled way that doesn't risk the compromise of the network as a whole.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. HbarSuite itself is looking to do the nodes, the release of the node validator program. We're hoping to release it in the middle of the summer, so July, hopefully all going well. So we'll be doing testing on it. So it's exciting to see how that's going to unfold and get the network into public permissions. So yeah, exciting to see. Have you guys got any questions for each other? I think most of the questions have pretty much been asked here.
So was there a specific question, Sophie, about the academic sector? I kind of remembered something to do with universities.
Yeah,
or was that just an example?
Yeah, so
that was an example. There's partially, I was just trying to scan and see if I understood all of those other brands. I think one that was of interest to me is you spoke about NGOs or non-government organisations, and you've got some matrix of criteria about, you know, the types of industries you want. You know, as a grassroots advocate in the Web3 space ever since like about 2016, I just wonder, like, what is the space for, I don't know if consumer advocacy is really the right way to look at it, but, you know, groups that don't represent big business, I'm just going to put it that simply. Like, what is the appetite for that integration? Or do you just think that there are groups out there that care enough to want to put themselves forward, or maybe they don't have the structure for it?
Well, we've got three big academic organisations on the council already. I mean, it's not all big business. But it is businesses that have or organisations that would have a lot to lose by colluding in this first phase, right? So remember, it's about trust, and that's not to say that, you know, through the HbarSuite initiative or through community nodes, we wouldn't get down to, you know, cooperative based node hosts or something which is more in touch with communities. Certainly, it's part of the longer term vision of Hedera to achieve that as well. So, I mean, that's the pat answer. I would like you, I'm sure, I'm a Web3 advocate, so I'd like to get there as quickly as possible, but maybe not as quickly as some of the degens amongst us want as well.
Yeah, just in relation to that, I think there's been discussions amongst the community in particular in relation to having potentially Hedera advocates type organisation to represent the community on the governing council, so they can actually have a voice within the council. So it's yet to be determined, but I think moving forward it could be something of interest for Hedera.
Interesting. Yeah, good. Thanks.
Yeah, I think there are other ways, there are other touch points too that we could be better at engaging community. The council is, I mean, it's not an ivory tower, it's meant to be what it is, which is the network operator in this first phase. We've got the foundations, which are deliberately set up to provide grant funding and support and ecosystem development, so they should be more engaged. Sometimes I think they're seen as not as much as they should be, but we're a decentralized organization, so the council does not control what the foundations do, even though we kind of give them the funding in order that they can fulfill a particular mission. So yeah, I think there is a lot that we you can do in terms of engaging the community and the developer community as well. I mean, this is all about adoption, and the developers of the world need to understand how easy it is to build on Hedera and what all the benefits of doing that. We're still, I'm not going to say we're still early because that's such a cliche in the space, but we are on this this path that doesn't happen overnight, which is another cliche for which I apologize.
Okay, guys, I think that's all from us over here. Really, thank you very much for attending and joining us here. I think there's been a great input from everyone. Yeah, if you'd like to give Rob and Daniel a round of applause, and then we'll let them sign off. I'll let you go.
Ronan, I've got one shout out in case anyone wants to get involved in the service I was describing. We're funding a challenge where we're hosting a bunch of people here in London to build on this protocol of DeRec. And so if anyone wants to get involved, feel free to ping me an email. We're kicking it off next month. And we're looking for people to just sort of build on top of this. So yeah, feel free.
And what would they be required to do?
Just participate in the challenge where we are building out a service similar to the one that I described that will take advantage of DeRec. So if there's any builders or potential CEOs or technical people or strategists or designers, all the skills required for running a successful business, we're running a challenge for those who want to participate.
What's his email?
Similar to like a hackathon event?
Similar to that.
Can we hit you up on LinkedIn?
Go for it.
Alright.
Perfect. All right, thanks very much, guys.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Enjoy the pizza.
It's always Domino's.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Rob himself was he was supposed to come over, but unfortunately something came up and he was unable to attend. So we decided to go down this route. I know it's not ideal, and I know it can be a little bit monotonous listening to somebody on the screen and not in person. But yeah, I think having Rob and Daniel on is yeah, it was fantastic to have them. Very, very much involved in Hedera, have been for a long time. So, yeah, the information that they have and the knowledge that they have is valuable. So, yeah. Yeah, so I'm just going to briefly talk about myself. So I'm partnership manager of HbarSuite. We have a token called HSuite, which is our network token. So it's a utility token used for the services on our network. So yeah, so the concept of HbarSuite was basically carried out of some of Lehman Bard's vision about having a .NET infrastructure on the network that will allow and enable applications to work together to be decentralized and come to consensus on the network. So decentralized network refers to the structure that the host and executive applications application networks enable distributed computing and storage for greater resilience, security, and scalable of applications. The Hedera public ledger acts as a trust layer for the information and executions without the need for smart contracts. So that in itself is where HbarSuite's founders wanted to use the services that were on Hedera to leverage Hedera's services. So you've got the file service, the consensus service, and the token service. So we came up, well, I won't take any credit for it, but the developers came up with the idea of smart nodes. So smart nodes are a powerful, highly customizable instructions programs which can be hosted and decentralized through cloud computing environments. So being able to have smart nodes, it gives more versatility amongst any of the smart contract like scenarios on Hedera. So there's many benefits to doing that. Smart nodes in itself. If I go here, if you compare the likes of smart contracts and smart nodes in comparison on Hedera, so you've got the likes of the memory limit. So technically, depending on the node validators, etc., and the application networks, they could potentially be unlimited memory limits. So whereas the smart contracts have a limit of 10 megabytes, so you would be able to program endless amount of utilities tied to your applications. So HbarSuite want to get to the stage where they'll be able to deploy smart apps. But as one of the guys was talking about earlier, he was asking about the EVM compatibility. So yes, Hedera is EVM compatible, and that's why we've shown a comparison of the smart contracts and smart nodes. So Solidity is the programming language along with another language which is required to program smart contracts on Hedera. So HbarSuite wanted to remove any of those limitations and make it easier for everyday users, maybe not everyday users, but everyday programmers or developers to be able to integrate. So first off, the HbarSuite will be deploying TypeScript language. So the likes of JavaScript developers will be able to integrate into smart nodes and leverage the Hedera services. The scalability, there's a limitation of TPS for smart contracts on Hedera. Although smart contracts are, I'm going to say, relatively small at this stage, but as you're scaling, you want to have as much scalability as possible, and with smart nodes it enables that. So because HbarSuite uses the Hedera layer 0, it interacts directly with the consensus service and directly into the layer 0. So technically HbarSuite could be considered as a 0.5 or a 1.5 layer of Hedera. So other people like the concept of a layer 2, but it's probably a step closer to the layer 1.5 because it's interacting directly with the consensus service. So you've got the dependency. So say if Ethereum ceased to exist or something happened, HbarSuite smart nodes would still be going, whereas the smart contracts on Hedera would be affected from that. Hedera's fees. So Hedera's fees in itself for a lot of the services are very small. As Rob mentioned, they're a fraction of a cent. So over here you've got some of the price comparisons, whereas on Hedera the consensus service in itself is 1/100th of a cent. So that allows businesses to do micropayments and leverage other capabilities and utilities from the low fees, because it may not be sustainable on other networks, especially when you have a bunch of increased gas fees, etc., on different chains. Yeah, Rob mentioned about finality of the era, so it's around 3 seconds of finality, as Rob mentioned. Then the energy usage is so low that it's quite easy to do any offsets. So Hedera is actually one of the most efficient chains out there because of the acyclical graph that is used. So Yeah, so with HbarSuite leveraging the low fees of the consensus service and other tools of Hedera, we've been able to reduce the fees compared to smart contracts. So with smart contracts on Hedera, you're actually required to have, there's different fee structures associated with smart contracts and deploying with smart contracts. So with smart nodes, it's far cheaper, so it's roughly about 75 times cheaper for each transaction of Hedera's fees. So we want to see the likes of developers building on HbarSuite Smart Node Network that will be able to leverage any of the low fees possible on Hedera. Yeah, so you're going to have the use of whatever the developers want to build, anything that they can see doing on smart contracts, they'll be able to program it into the smart nodes and use it. So some of the uses that HbarSuite use is the likes of the multi-sig. So does anyone know what a multi-sig is? Yeah, so multi-sig, you can, with a multi-sig, you can basically program any logic into the multi-sig. So you would be able to set thresholds with those multi-sigs and be able to create those triggers to trigger any of the transactions using the multi-sig. So it's a really fascinating new way, and it could be the revolutionary way of being the next generation of smart contracts. So when it comes to failed transactions, there's the likes of the transactions on HbarSuite Smart Nodes. There's very little failed transactions on the network, on HbarSuite network, because there's a lot of the smart nodes are able to see exactly what is in the account before any of the transactions are approved. So they can basically verify the accounts before it's actually approved. Yeah, so we can basically, if the transaction doesn't go through, there's no charge on HbarSuite fees. So HbarSuite don't want to be charging anyone for a transaction that doesn't go through. However, if it fails on Hedera, there is a small fee of the consensus service. So you're talking like a fraction of a cent for a failed transaction. I remember talking to some people who were doing transactions on Ethereum, and there was something crazy like 6 ETH that he told me that he ended up spending on a failed transaction on Ethereum. So that itself is pretty crazy considering the price of Ethereum now. So yeah, so with the likes of micropayments, yeah, it's completely possible, and it's a more viable solution for enterprises because of the fee structures in itself, because the fees in itself are tied to the US dollar. So it's very beneficial for the likes of enterprises to be able to plan out their structure and even forecast any of the prices of their spreadsheets, etc., yearly forecasts, etc. Yeah, so HbarSuite has built a zero slippage exchange. So that exchange is a complex algorithm that basically will, with the slippage, it can be, so it does the transaction, it will, so before you approve the transaction, it will provide you with an accurate amount of what you're going to receive at the time. So within that time period, you'll have, I think it's 5 seconds or so to approve the transaction. So within that time, a certain portion of the transaction gets locked, and then the rest of it is balanced for that transaction. So
you don't have a problem with this front running boat and this sandwich and everything?
no, so with Hedera, it's not possible, as far as I'm aware, to do any front running on Hedera because of the consensus service. So we'll basically lock up that transaction while
You don't have scavengers. You don't have the scavengers playing
the scavengers.
yeah, whatever it's called.
I'm sure there's going to be plenty of scavengers, so we'll see how that holds up. But yeah, as far as I'm aware at the minute, it's not possible on Hedera, just because of the use of the consensus service. Yeah, so HbarSuite has developed an application which is a showcase feature of the potential uses of smart nodes. So we've been able to create an exchange, so the zero slippage exchange. We're the first one, definitely on Hedera, to have the zero slippage exchange. So it's pretty amazing what you can do with the likes of smart nodes and leveraging Hedera services. We also have the cross-chain exchange, which enables HbarSuite to transact, to send from wallet to wallet transactions. So I mentioned Ethereum to Hedera earlier, or if it's Solana. So when the transaction occurs, you'll be sending the tokens to a certain wallet. So that wallet acts is then sent to our third party, which is then sent to the other wallet. So we have made it possible, and if you were to check out the fees in itself, it's relatively low. We've got a lot of interest in the cross-chain exchange and how we've been able to interact with different wallets and do it decentralized without needing KYCs, etc. So yeah, there's unlimited potential with certain tokens. So
Are they via bridges or other?
no, it's not through a bridge. So we wanted to, the founders try as much not to fragment tokens by wrapping tokens. So there's going to be a lot of issues, in my opinion, with the likes of bridges. If bridges fail to exist, then it can jeopardize the tokens that are on one of the sides. So we want to make it decentralized, that you'll be able to transfer your tokens freely between any of your wallets, or you can send to another chain. So that's the power of decentralization, to enable that ability to do so. Yeah, and then we also have Launchpad as well. So tokens, whether it be fungible, non-fungible, you could have tokenized assets. So there's so many uses of the Launchpad. Yeah, so we did a seed fund using the Launchpad. We've used different mechanisms such as dynamic NFTs. Yeah, so we've had the likes of escrow NFTs sold, where you could program the NFTs. So dynamic NFTs is when you can program logic into the NFTs. So when you have maybe, I'll use the escrow NFT for example, you were able to get distributed a certain portion of the allocated amount split up into weekly, monthly, or daily distributions. So there's so many things that you can do with the attributes of dynamic NFTs, and yeah, that's how we've used some of them throughout the Launchpad. We've got an NFT DEX where the owner of the NFTs can become their own market maker, so they can provide the liquidity and the NFTs to be able to create that platform for tradability between one another. So the platform is just there for the people to become their own market makers rather than having certain places that you go just for a marketplace. We want to empower the people to be able to leverage any of the uses of the trading mechanisms in place. Token manager, so HbarSuite has a token manager where you can create your own tokens, and you can actually do it in a matter of minutes. So it's pretty interesting. We've seen the likes of stablecoins and cryptocurrencies tokenized using the platform. Yeah, and then we've also got a DAO, so the community itself is a limited DAO. So HbarSuite has the voting mechanism in place to vote on anything that wants what the community wants related to changes or implementations on HbarSuite. You've also got the multi-sig. A lot of people find it very useful to have the management in place where you can actually manage your wallets and not have just one single wallet. If, say, for example, one wallet was to get compromised, you could have a mechanism in place like a multi-sig to help manage the wallet with your assets in and help safeguard it from any scams or exploits. HbarSuite also, with the smart nodes, we don't use allowances with the smart nodes. So with smart contracts, a lot of flaws and exploits tend to come with the exposure of the allowances. So many allowances, so whenever you're doing a transaction, you may have to select to approve an allowance in order for a transaction to continue. And without that allowance, you can't
What's
do
allowance? It's not a fee, is it?
An allowance basically will, so if you look at a decentralized exchange, for example, you will have a number of different rules, for example, that it may go through in order to fulfill that transaction. So you have to pre-authorize the transaction before the transaction can go ahead. So with HbarSuite, they don't have allowances, so it takes out that opportunity for any exploits. So you have lines of different smart contract calls that you would have within a smart contract allowance to fulfill the transaction. So because there's no allowances on HbarSuite, you basically are taking out that security risk of having a flawed or having having a malicious smart contract, and that is where you often see a lot of exploits arising, is within smart contracts somewhere along the line. And because the smart nodes interact directly from wallet to wallet, you're not going to have that same issue. You can actually verify the transaction before it actually occurs, rather than pre-authorizing a transaction. Yeah, so that is some of the, so related to the smart nodes, this is some of the areas which it improves. The security, hosting executable on-chain provides transparency, so you can actually see and trace image transactions, and they're a lot easier to read than the actual smart contracts on Hedera. And sometimes you may not be able to read or verify a smart contract unless you're the key owner. So anyone can basically go on chain and verify any of the transactions that are going through HbarSuite smart nodes. The throughput, as I mentioned earlier, there's a limitation of 300 to 350 throttled smart contracts, whereas it's over 10,000 transactions per second on Hedera. So for security related to the throughput, it can help avoid any DDoS attacks as well. So DDoS attacks are basically when the network gets plagued with so many transactions at one time that it clamps up the network and doesn't enable the transactions to go through. So it basically creates a jam. That's one of the things that using smart nodes can help avoid doing, because it's based on the layer 0 of Hedera. So it's interacting directly and leveraging Hedera's layer 0. Sustainability, we touched on that earlier, because again, smart nodes are leveraging actual services of Hedera. It gives it more sustainability aspect. I mentioned the cost earlier. The cost is obviously 75 times lower Hedera fees than if you were to use smart contracts. So yeah, so we see it as a bright future for smart nodes and the potential for developers to build on top of it. The real scalable solution would be for enterprises. Enterprises could really benefit from using these because they have unlimited memory, low fees, the security, ABFT, so asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerant, and yeah, so the complexity is also a problem which is fixed. On-chain applications are limited in size and therefore limited to function. So that's related to the megabytes on Hedera. So with HbarSuite, it could potentially be unlimited memory. So it's the perfect solution for the likes of enterprises to be able to scale their businesses. Yeah, so HbarSuite, they have a number of services, white label services, many of them which is the showcase features which are on the application. The DApp, which is live and can be used by anyone. You have to connect using Hashgraph wallet in order to do transactions. We will be releasing a new version which will enable more functionality with regards to wallets. So if programmers are looking to develop with smart nodes, they will be able to leverage the version 2, which will give them more functionality and be able to tap into other wallets and not just limited to their wallets. It'll be functional anything that uses Wallet Connect. So yeah, so we're pretty excited for the release of version 2 of smart nodes because it'll be a more versatile version and more dynamic in what you can actually use the smart nodes for. And this will be something that enterprises will really be able to use, because one of the things, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to mention, but enterprises will basically be able to buy a subscription model where they'll be able to utilize their own token as a base layer and be able to use that as a network feed for their own applications. So being able to scale and to make them smart applications. It's exciting to watch and see. So yeah, going back to the white label services, you've got zero slippage, decentralized exchange, and that's using the smart rebalance market maker, which is part of the zero slippage DEX. Then you've also got fair ordering, which was one of the questions earlier. Then you've got the NFT marketplace, cross-chain exchange, decentralized decision-making tool, the DAO, decentralized multi-sig wallet management, and then the cross-chain reporting. The white label services for enterprises, dynamic NFTs, private encrypted decentralized file storage, private encrypted messaging, decentralized social media platform, decentralized event logging, decentralized ticket and CRM systems, decentralized database, carbon footprint monitoring, decentralized identity. One of our partners, SciComm, based out of Malaysia, they'll be working with the higher education of Malaysia to use their decentralized digital identity for students within the international higher education programs within Malaysia. So that's something exciting to watch and see our partners evolve with the building of that. On-chain social credit score, tokenized fractional investment markets, tokenized real estate. One of our other partners, Banqua, they've actually got a real estate tokenization platform, which they're tokenizing real estate properties within Dubai. So it's really interesting to see that project or that business evolve. Then that's the end of HbarSuite. Another thing which it kind of ties into the Australian Payment Plus. HbarSuite can enable a private smart node network. So when you're thinking of the likes of financial institutions, and they normally work on the likes of T1 or T2, which is a settlement time frame, which occurs pretty much at the end of the days between the banks. So with the likes of Hedera, it'll have instant settlement. So rather than having to wait for the end of the day, which Wall Street may hate, you're going to have instant settlement rather than a T1, T2 settlement time. You can have an instant settlement. And when it comes to real world assets and settlement of any assets in itself, timing can be very important. So, any questions?
I saw you had encrypted messaging. Are you guys any thoughts? How are you planning to deal with the chat control legislation coming in the EU? Have you heard of that and doing anything?
The developers tend to stay on top of any of the protocols that are going. So our developers,
Yep.
the developers tend to stay ahead of the curve with everything. So I'm not the developer, so I can't really answer that question directly, but they like to stay ahead of everything to ensure that everything will remain encrypted and safe and decentralized, because the real function of HbarSuite is to empower the decentralization of assets.
Thank you, Ronan. Yeah.
Not just one.
Oh, you just turned it. Okay, what if this one's on? Oh, that one's not working. Oh, yeah, let me just that one.
Thanks very much. Look, we've got one presentation left, so yeah, I think it'd be nice. Thank you very much for that thorough. So everyone, there's the QR code if you're interested in knowing more about the development tools or more about HbarSuite. I think it's been a very rounded out, can we say, yeah, presentation on Hedera and that application. Wonderful. So to conclude, blockchain wagering. I'd like to know more about that. Take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Sophie. Yeah, so Mark asked me to do a presentation on Arbela, but that's a bit B2B at the moment, and I thought this would be a bit more interesting. This has been a rabbit hole me and my friend Mark have been diving down for the last few months. Blockchain wagering, the entertainment ethics regulation, and technology behind it. So if you divide blockchain gaming into two categories, you've got the quite famous one, I think, which is play to earn.
Yes.
Players earn rewards through gameplay activities such as completing quests, winning battles, achieving milestones. You get games such as Axie Infinity and the Sandbox. They're largely reliant on new users buying in to provide income to the current players, though, which was the common criticism of the category. And then you've got wagering, which is players place bets using crypto, outcomes purely chance-based or incorporates some skill elements. But when I was writing this, I kind of thought there's a much broader range of concepts than I thought than just your typical online casino game. Even things like Axie Infinity and the Sandbox, you put money in, there's an element of maybe labor, which is the play to earn, but then also chance and maybe a bit of skill, and you have a hope of future payments coming back out that are larger than the ones you put in. So really anything in blockchain could maybe even be considered wagering, including, I'm sure like most people here are familiar with Supremacy, the Perth project from a couple of years ago. I wouldn't call it gambling by any stretch, but it was, you put money in, an event happens, money comes back out or doesn't come back out. Stake.com is probably the biggest Australian example. Ed Craven, I think, is the youngest billionaire in Australia at the moment. And that's just purely like an online casino using blockchain as an on-ramp and an off-ramp. And then as well, speculating on meme coins. I mean, what is that but gambling, basically?
Pretty much. We're going to look around that. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, exactly. So I put together a kind of recent history of what I think the biggest events in the last 30 years have been in this space. In 1995, casinos began moving online. So that led to a number of innovations, particularly in payment security. It was one of the leading reasons that payments got so secure on the internet so early. In 2005, 10 years later, the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act banned online gambling in the United States, and then just 7 years later, two events happened simultaneously. The first was Satoshi Dice was released, which was the first Bitcoin gambling game, and online gambling was largely made legal in the EU and the United States, and also decided that it shouldn't be a federal issue, but a state-based issue. 6 years later, Hbar was a set of regulations that got passed in the United States around excluding sports betting from online gambling legislation, and that resulted in companies like DraftKings and a number of others becoming unicorns that year. And then 2020 COVID restrictions resulted in a rise in online gambling from those seeking entertainment, and obviously, unfortunately as well, problem gamblers. Which leads me into the ethics of online gambling and the situation that it's currently in. There are three, I think, major ethical problems in online gambling. The first being fairness. Cheating by players, houses and bookies is enabled by opaque practices and weak jurisdictional oversight. This has been a problem as long as gambling has existed, and that's predating writing. It's particularly prevalent in online gambling currently because machines are able to make decisions. It's not like when you go to a casino, they spin the wheel, you can see the ball bouncing around. It could be hacked, but it's a lot easier to hack an algorithm when players can't see it. Most licenses for online gambling currently is provided in Malta and Curacao, so trust is not provided to users by regulatory oversight. It's provided by the companies themselves. The second major ethical issue is money laundering. Traditionally, gambling has been associated with criminal elements. Anyone who's familiar with the history of Las Vegas and knows how Las Vegas started, and a number of other cities as well, should know that there's always been a large criminal element, and that's mainly due to money laundering. Money launderers will come in, make a lot of small bets at the casino, and the cost of the launderer is the house edge. So the house usually makes about 3.5% over a long period of time. And if that's all it costs to clean your money, then people will obviously partake in that. This isn't as much of a problem in online casinos, and I'll get to why in a minute, but it is particularly prevalent in physical casinos. The biggest problem with gambling, particularly online, is addiction. Problem gamblers contribute 20% of gambling companies' revenues, and that's from a Canadian context. That was the only number I could find. Some games are designed with addiction in mind instead of entertainment. Features like rapid play and feedback, mindless mechanics, chasing losses and seeking higher and higher stakes being enabled. Poker machines is what they call them over East, but slot machines in the United States and fruit machines in the EU have the highest rates of addiction, and then games like bingo, maybe because of the social element, tend to have the lowest. Here's how these problems can be, I think, mitigated to an extent. Blockchain tech can, I think, solve the fairness issue pretty completely by using publicly viewable smart contracts and auditable code. There's a new system as well, which isn't always blockchain, but some companies like Stake.com are using, which is the provably fair system. That allows users to assess any chance-based games on the internet using the SHA-256 hashing algorithm to prove the outcome of a game was not tampered with before the user even plays. And this isn't as available yet from gaming providers, but it should be, and that's making available to users the results of all games to prove the house edge over a long period of time. The house edge, for example, should never be more than 3.5%. Money laundering is largely, I think, been solved in online gaming, which is due to the government. They, I think, released some clever legislation around KYC and AML. And this isn't just for gaming, but also takes place across all financial products, exchanges. You've probably had to show your license or something if you've ever signed up for a crypto on-ramp or off-ramp, and that's due to KYC AML regulations. More recently as well, machine learning has enabled software to more accurately flag suspicious transactions and identify what are known as PEPs, or politically exposed persons, people who are likely seeking to launder money. And then finally, addiction is, I think, the hardest one of these three issues to solve, but has been mitigated somewhat by the concept of providing games for entertainment, not addiction. So no rapid play, no mindless mechanics, skill and thought being encouraged, social elements, longer payoffs as well. It's not just click reward or click loss. Users being able to view their own statistics, I think, has a pretty large impact. They can see how much they're losing or what's going on over a long period of time. And another one that's not being implemented yet, I don't think fully, but AI and machine learning can be used to spot problem behavior and intercept it, imposing lockouts and encouraging help for users. This one is, honestly not implemented anywhere, but in the same sense that it is being implemented for money laundering, where you can see, okay, 5 or 6 people have signed up, for example, in England, in the same location, very similar details, okay, that's flagged for money laundering, but is it being flagged for addiction purposes when you're chasing losses or your stakes are increasing, possibly constantly depositing into the application? That should be able, I think, to flag to these providers that there's activity going on that's not necessarily purely for entertainment. There are a couple of commercial problems, I think, as well with online gambling in the modern world. There are a lot of companies with gaming and wagering licenses, but almost none of those make their own games. They purchase games from the same 3 software providers. These 3 software providers have a massive market share.
Who are those software providers?
I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but what's that, sir? Maybe, yeah. If you check out, it's hard for us because we're Australian, so we can't actually access any of these gaming providers. But if you set your VPN to American, go onto one of these sites, you'll see like the same game popping up again and again across these different gambling providers. What happens is they go out, they get the license. They can't code themselves. They're not technical people generally. They're financial people, and so they'll just consider that a cost of doing business. But what the result is quite stale games that just have a proven track record with their users, so they don't really care. The other interesting commercial problem is that houses generally maintain a 3% advantage depending on the game. But as this dynamic scales, it results in enormous profits to the house. Anyone who saw Ed Craven purchase that, I think it was like $300 million worth of developments. And that guy's only like 28, 29 as well. He's the guy who owns stake.com, so super profitable to run one of these things. So yeah, as it scales, it's not being returned to current users, but a percentage is in a way provided to future users in the form of sign-up incentives. So that, I think, is a little perverse as well. If anything, the additional profit could be provided to current users who are paying them. So I think there are a few things that can be done to push online gaming away from gambling and all the problems that come with it to an area of entertainment first. And the first thing I think that could be done is original games for entertainment where users can wager and play safely, vertically integrated and not outsourced. Elements of skill being introduced to reduce the house edge from 3% to 0.5%. That I think is interesting because it doesn't even necessarily have to change the gaming company's revenues, whilst also making it fairer. There still has to be, I think, some kind of house edge. Like you're going to get somebody who creates a bot that wins the game every single time, and so you need to maintain something small. But I don't think it has to be as high as 3%. The most interesting use case of blockchain here, though, is I think you could use blockchain mechanics to provide players a percentage of the house profits. Whether that's releasing a token that is backed by the income of the online gaming company, or a number of other ways, like even, these people like gaming, so a lottery or something like that. There's a lot of ways that could be done. But ensuring that, like, in traditional gaming companies, it doesn't all go to the house. The other thing I think should be done by any provider who plays online games, even if they slightly have to do with chance, is to collect data, actively target and prevent addiction behavior. So me and Mark have been working on a platform for a little while. So there are 2 games. Both of them require, I think, an element of skill.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So, given that background that you've given, which is very thorough, thank you very much about, like the vagaries of the gaming industry online, was that kind of like you're thinking to create your own games, some that fit that higher level of standard?
Yeah, pretty much. Like we wanted to create like an online arcade where gaming and making an interesting set of games came first, but the wagering element, I think, is fraught with danger. And you don't want to create something addictive. You don't want to create something boring. And a lot of the companies out there, they either, I think, are in one of 2 minds. It's either like, you create really great games like Bethesda or something like this, and everybody pays $90, they have access to the game. And for some reason, this dynamic results in really interesting games being made. But the dynamic where you put money in, you play a game, and money either comes out or doesn't come out. This dynamic has sort of resulted in a race to the bottom. Like it's slot machines. It's press a button, instant result, money comes out or doesn't come out. When I don't think it has to be that way. I think if there was a push towards making those types of, or not those types of games, but that business model more entertainment friendly and less blatantly advertising to addicts, then you could come up with some kind of interesting stuff. So we came up with 2 games that are semi-skill based and have luck elements as well. The first one is enabling people to bet on the price of Bitcoin over short periods. And the second one is sort of like, did you ever play those Minesweeper games on Windows? You can tell how many mines are around and there's always a bomb in them. So yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. I never actually won the hard mode on that, but maybe on this. And of course, we've got the ability to deposit and withdraw using crypto. Yeah, the market size with gambling and online gaming and wagering is massive. So $145.6 billion is what the market is pulling in, or estimated to pull in 2026. 52.5 billion could be attributed to cryptocurrency in 2026, I think, and that's based off of there being 420 cryptocurrency users worldwide, and the annual revenue per user is at about $500. So that gets you $52.5 billion. And then if a new company was to come along and capture 0.1% of that market, it would still be quite significant. But the market's largely run, interestingly enough, by Australian companies. In Perth, we've got VGW, we've got Lawrence Escalante who runs that. As I mentioned, we've got Stake over in Sydney, run by Ed Craven, and also is it Adrian Portelli, Mark? Yeah.
With the car raffle.
Yeah, doing car raffles.
And this is you.
Yeah, this one's us. We haven't got a name yet. Yeah, we're interestingly, I was talking to Mark when he asked me to present, and I was saying, well, we're a bit early on this concept, but I'm happy to go down sort of the rabbit hole that we went down, thinking that this was an interesting space to explore as well.
So where are you in the design process? Are you in work concept?
Yeah, we've built Mark's built the deposit and withdrawal system using crypto, and we've built a game each. And honestly, I think the next step for us, we've been keeping it pretty under the radar at the moment, but we'll probably be reaching out to investors. We need one of those gaming licenses eventually. So that'll be, I think, one of the next steps we take. But honestly, just wanted to come here and talk about this and generate a discussion about what everyone thinks could be done to make this entertaining, maybe more ethical. If there's any experiences you guys have had with the industry, it's pretty hard being from WA. It's not something we're really exposed to over here. Yeah, just a bit about us. I come from a finance background, but I do love coding and I do love blockchain. And Mark is real technical whiz. He was the ex-CTO over at Carbon. I don't know if you guys know them, but they're a Perth-based blockchain gaming company. He also owns Stack Software, and we've basically been coding and interested in blockchain for the same amount of time. Yeah, so if there's any questions, happy to field them.
Well, first of all, I think it's very interesting, your thesis of where the market is at and what that can provide in terms of new types of games. So I think, for me that's a plus to even be thinking outside of like where the gaming market has come from. It seems to be a little bit dull in the crypto gaming space.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's kind of been an attitude shift on this recently on like what a big part of blockchain is for everyone, which is like fun, essentially. A lot of people in the industry just want to make money and have fun doing it. and there was an interesting paper, I can't remember the VC who wrote it, but a number of VCs have recently turned towards investing in meme coins. And in their sort of, in their defense, yeah, some have made a ton of money as well, especially with Dog with Hat, but they kind of defended this in a paper and spoke about it having an actual use case, which is, people just want to have fun, people want to make money.
Yeah, I agree.
And that, I think, was the event that for us kind of brought into focus this, what is like a luck-based game on the internet, like what is it currently, what could it be? Could it be done more entertainingly? Could it be done more ethically?
I mean, if you look at meme coin wagering there, I mean, like an analyst, or I'm sure Greg wouldn't mind me saying that. Do you know Greg Holton from Portal Asset Management here in Perth?
I know Portal. I don't know Greg though.
Okay, so he's their crypto analyst. So he's got a background in equities, and institutional grade equity analysis. And so anyway, like I thought it was really interesting. Meme coins are a funnel. Meme coin wagering is a funnel for pretty much anyone out there in the wider market to think about, hey, that looks fun. These JPEGs, like what's the value of it? Flip a coin, let's see where we can go. My question to you is like, I mean, I don't know, mines, it looks interesting. And then also the Bitcoin wagering, not wagering, but Bitcoin like price flip, where's the market going to go? How do you intend to make those fun? I mean, I guess it's behind it. Like, I know those are just static images you see, but what's your thinking about bringing that element into your gaming?
I think a lot of games may require a hook, like some sort of mechanism that is satisfying and enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that like sort of understanding that hook
Right.
is and finding that hook in a game is like a mechanism that makes it very enjoyable.
Right.
Yeah, and also adding some skill level into it as well, and competition can also make it a lot more fun.
So you've got skill, but is your hook under wraps?
Yeah.
I think it might be.
Well, that's the thing about the hook. It's like you want the games to be entertaining, but you don't want them to prey on people's addictive tendencies. And there's like a couple of mechanisms that would help make them entertaining, but would also, I think, go too far in that direction and attract the wrong kind of crowd. So I think Mark's right, adding like a skill element, adding sort of like what traditional games do, where you can like level up, you can go through the game kind of thing. There are things you can do, I think, around the time it takes to end the game as well. Like it's not instant, it's not repeating cycles too quickly between betting and playing. And like I was saying with bingo as well, there's like the social element, which I think really helps. You're not just kind of sat by yourself doing it anonymously, which is, I think, one of the bigger risks of online gaming. If the social element can be embedded into it effectively, I think that really helps bring up the entertainment and bring down the addiction.
Regarding the use of cryptocurrencies, will you be using your own token, or will you be using, or which token will you select?
Yeah, good question. We were initially, so we built the deposit withdrawal system with crypto in mind. I think Ethereum and Bitcoin first, as the two ones that you're able to deposit and withdraw from in the system. But yeah, more recently we've also been looking at mechanisms to encourage, I think, players to join our platform over the leading ones like Stake. And I think one of the really big ones there is you could use a token, you could release your own token that could be backed by the income generated by the house. Probably not 100% of the income of the company. I don't know what the percentage would be, but I mean, if some of these companies scale and you start to see the insane amount of revenue they're making, and they spend that revenue then on marketing, they spend it on acquiring new users instead of I think returning it to their current users, which probably would result in better retention and I think a better reputation amongst people who aren't sure what company to go with. I think it's a no-brainer. I'm not sure, honestly, why no other companies have done that yet.
So you're looking to become, if I hear you right, a socially responsible gaming platform per se, within which you're going to be kind of like putting the two flagship products out there into the market?
Not just, the two products we have at the moment are just a proof of concept, really.
Proof of concept.
Yeah.
But I mean, generally going to be an invitation to any devs team to come along and to
Absolutely.
launch.
Yeah, sure, like anyone who's got a cool idea for a game, hit us up and we'll see
On
what we
your
can do about it.
platform.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Just as a mother of 3 young men who game constantly, and they all live at home because nobody can move out these days, they're already addicted without adding the gambling component. So like, I'm thinking, I mean, already my house is like people yelling and arguing with people like and screaming, swearing and this, that. That's just, is that your target market? Are you trying to get these people that are already playing these games to then move over to gambling as well?
Really? Good question. I think what we had in mind, and we do have to be careful about this, is the opposite. So what we want to capture is people who are already on the purely degenerate casino games and maybe bring them over without, I think, capturing people who wouldn't have wagered otherwise. And
so you're not going to kind of do these games like Call of Duty or whatever that I don't even know.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of these games as well already have mechanisms in place that are similar to gambling.
Yeah,
loot
loot
boxes
boxes.
and
I don't know, 'cause I don't
micro purchases and stuff like this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we're hoping that using the token, that there is a possibility of making things a bit more fair and reducing the house edge.
And I guess, I suppose, if they're already playing, if they're playing and they're winning, but I just worry about them losing.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, these are young people. I mean, my youngest son's 22, and like, he doesn't have heaps of money, he doesn't earn that much. So for him to get in, and he loves to game.
Yeah.
My son used to steal my credit card details.
Another thing is offering the ability to play without actually wagering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there are a couple of things I think that could be done that even traditional gaming companies don't do, which is you could, I think, use machine learning now to spot addiction and addictive tendencies and force timeouts. Obviously, a lot of gambling companies don't currently do this. It's not in their bottom line interest. But like I was saying, only 20% of online gaming companies' revenues come from problem gamblers. I don't think it's too much to ask to try and cut out that segment of your revenue base. I think running at 80% revenue is still not too bad and getting a better reputation as a company. But where traditional games are concerned, I think addiction takes like a different form, a form of like it's the opportunity cost of what you could have been doing otherwise. Whereas this is a bit more of a dangerous one where it's money as well. So yeah, there's a real corporate social responsibility that needs to happen in the industry. But I think if a company had the reputation of being an entertainment first company, a place that's safe, a place that doesn't prey on people, it could easily steal customers from the people who do prey on people and who aren't entertainment first.
Do you feel that's a compelling enough thesis for, like financiers who are interested? Do you feel like you've got like a very tight pitch for them?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's one of those chicken and the egg things, right? We can't try to attract users who are paying without having a gaming license, which is the traditional way, of course, to attract a VC. So I think what we're going to have to do is try and release this just as a pure arcade to see if people are interested in the entertainment for entertainment's sake. But I think that the thesis is let's try to be the safer option than what's currently being provided. The current providers are going through a bit of a PR shitstorm right now, as they probably should as well. And so I think that a large number of the people who are currently with them, a large number of their users are responsible gamers who are in it for the entertainment. They're not there because they're completely degenerate. And I think if you marketed a platform to them and not to that 20%, then you have a pretty strong capability of stealing them from where they currently are.
And just as an idea, I'm thinking, so just in my head, perhaps those 20% might not have been those 20% if there'd been an alternative earlier before they got to that point where they were playing slot machines and getting that. Yeah,
no, that's absolutely right. And one of the most interesting things I think I found out from just doing tons of research about this was the sort of hierarchy of games and addiction and sort of like the common themes between them. Like I said, slot machines being the worst offender, bingo being the least, but it was really any kind of games with a skill or a social element, like poker is not as bad as some of the others. So it's kind of just designing games with that stuff in mind. Like playing poker with your friends is like honestly one of the funnest things. But if you can sort of replicate that kind of experience in an online situation, I think you've got like a much better chance of creating a strong entertainment platform.
Sounds like social I'm sorry. I'm just going to say, it sounds like social interaction can be a really powerful component.
For sure.
You know, so is that like somehow contemplated in the design?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and like that, it could be implemented like as simply as like a chat or a chat room or something like that, or achievements or badges or kind of reputation systems. There's a ton of different ways that you could achieve that. Video calls is another one, like having actual video chat rooms. We're still thinking about it, to be honest. It's such early days. But.
Excellent.
I was just thinking of like how popular the Pokemon Go game was, and like trying to make that into like NFTs, like they capture NFTs, and maybe even like real world asset. And you mentioned house. I just wondered what that idea about house that you mentioned.
Oh, sorry. When I said house, it's like a concept of if, for example, you go to the casino and you put $10 on red, the house is playing as black and 000. The house is basically the casino or the bank. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's a good idea about Pokemon, like, stuff like that. There's already a community behind Pokemon. Like, people all know each other in that community as well, and so that would be an example of something that facilitates entertainment.
So do you want to release anything here into the Perth market? I mean, are you looking for kind of testers?
Love to.
I've got 3 at my house.
Oh yeah. Probably can't legally if we're doing wagering, but we could, I think once we're up and running, we'll chuck out some free games, and honestly, if anyone's got some ideas for like some games or like some concepts, particularly things that you like playing at the arcade, I think that's the sort of middle ground we're going for. Super interested to know.
Fantastic.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks everyone for coming out. I know that it was a pretty kind of like stormy night before we all got here. Thank you once again to HbarSuite, Hedera, and to Connor for making this an interesting Oz DeFi event. The next one is going to be in June, date yet to be determined. I'm also going to ask if you want to be kept up to date, maybe just ping me a message and I can put you into our WhatsApp chat group. Then you can kind of like get the latest of what's going on or look at the meetup. But thank you very much for coming along, and if anyone can stay to clean up, that'd be appreciated. But we've got a few more minutes, so drink a little bit, eat a little bit, and then we'll see each other very soon. Bye. What's that?
There's plenty of food and drinks. Please drink as much or eat as much as you want. Because otherwise I have to take it out.
I feel like I have to enjoy yourself.